Hey, Yetta, why is mediocrity so comfortable?
Because it's fitting in with the masses. I get to fit in.
Oh, so mediocre is average.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I get to fit.
Moving forward with the Decker team. Moving forward together with the Decker team.
So we're excited that and actually honored that we've been able to create for you free access to over 587 Life's Inside Track episodes on our YouTube channel and a podcast on CHRI that give you insider tips on real estate, how to make house home, and really how to build wealth and generational legacy. And the great news is you get access to them from home, from the office, or even on the go. So we're going to discover in this episode if is it true, if comfort is holding you back, if being like everyone else, not everyone else, but like the masses, if that is holding you back.
Yeah. And in the first segment, we talked about hiding out in our dysfunction.
Right.
And that's not everybody. Like it's common that when you struggle financially, you hide out in that and you draw it in. And though many people are suffering or having the same issues, when everybody's quiet about it, it doesn't exist.
Well, it's hidden, right? That was the whole hide and seek game. Nobody's come to seek you.
Yeah. Now, what we're finding as we're discussing this is that people that are middle of the road, you might call it mediocrity, you might call it average, you might call it the median, normal, okay, middle class. They tend to have, like, and I think we did this. You buy the house. Now you got a nice house. You buy a car, so you got a decent car. Maybe it's even a new car. And we were more open about talking about our situation because we felt we were in the masses. We had some good things.
We were like everybody else that we hung out with.
Yeah. But when we talked about the house, I don't know how many times I said, yeah, me and the bank own the house, right?
Yep.
The bank owns most of it.
Yeah.
So you diminish that we were able to collect the down payment to buy a property and that we leveraged the bank's money.
Well, and here's the interesting thing with that one. We would still, before that, we were paying rent.
Yeah.
Which was not really any different than our initial mortgage payment. I think our mortgage payments were actually less when we bought the first house than our rent had been. And so often it's not like when we say the bank owns it, it's true, but we're minimizing the fact that we're actually putting equity in our bank account instead of in the bank account of either the lender or the bank account really of the landlord.
And then on top of that, like now we got a car, but we got a car payment. So is having a car payment normalized? It's pretty normal. People think, oh, I'll always have a car payment. Some people do.
We thought that.
We thought that. We don't anymore. And what's interesting is because it's normalized, people don't hide out in that. People don't hide out in what's normal because it feels safe.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Safe is it's interesting because you feel safe, and then are you actually safe? Is the state of normal the safe place to be?
Well, it's not, because most Canadians are a few $100s away from having a financial issue. They miss 1 or 2 paychecks, they've got a big financial issue. That's normal.
Yeah.
And so people talk about that. Right? If they buy a toy, I call it a toy like a snowmobile or boat or something like that, many, many times they buy with payments. And then they talk about, oh yeah, I even did it. I used to sing, I owe, so off to work I go. Like, I went from hiding out to talking about how we were now kind of middle class. We had the average problem of the average Canadian.
And so what's the solution here? Like, it just sounds like I'm feeling depressed just as you're talking
Well, the solution is to buy the wealth formula, but that's a whole nother story.
No, that's not another story.
Oh, it's not?
No, it's
a continuation of the story?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
learn from what we learned during that period, because when we hit what I would call middle class, or and I don't really like classes.
It's not. It's
really
typical
sad.
being
Normal.
like the typical.
The average.
Can we say typical?
Typical.
Typical. Because I don't think it's normal. I think it's
at some point we decided we didn't want to be typical either. We didn't want to be in the high debt, just about to claim bankruptcy, but we didn't want to be normal either. We didn't want to be typical. So then we started reading a lot of financial books, following.
There's the solution.
Oh, there's the solution.
And as we started talking about it, we started talking to people that weren't typical like we were. They weren't doing the same things we were doing. They looked just a little bit different. And they weren't saying, hey, I have a car payment. They might have said, and most of the time they wouldn't say it out loud. But
well, that's the problem. We're going to talk about that in segment 3.
Yeah.
Is the next level is the wealthy tend to hide out.
You don't give away the secret now?
Oh, yeah. We're giving it away now so they'll listen. The reason it's difficult to move out of typical is because when you're typical, most of your friends, if not all of them, are typical. And the people that maybe aren't typical, even if they are your friends, you might not know that they're not typical because they start hiding out. Mm-hmm. So it's a tricky spot to be because it can be comfortable.
Right. So if you're feeling really comfortable right now and you're going, oh, you are screaming at me right now, even though we're not actually screaming, but it can feel like it. Like when you're getting a message that lands deeply, at least that often happens for me. If it lands deeply, I feel like the person's voice has elevated. I feel like their tone has sped up. Or their pace has sped up. I feel like there's a passion and an energy there that wasn't there before, because now I feel like they're speaking to me. So if you feel like we're speaking to you, then I'm actually going to encourage read The Wealth Formula and other sound financial books that can open up. Not maybe you even know a lot of this stuff already, but really give you a lay of the land piece by piece, and really just give you opportunity to get into action differently. If nobody's willing to talk to you, which is what we found, then reading something, and we read book upon book upon book upon book, because that was the only way we could shift what we thought was typical. Because when you read the books, that's all typical now. That feels normal.
Do you want to hear a hint of how to find somebody who's wealthy but hiding out?
Okay.
It's kind of like when we were finding the sand dollars. You don't look for the sand dollars. You look for the little hump in the sand, right? When you're looking for somebody that's wealthy, they typically talk about ideas. They're talking about investment ideas. They're talking like they're not talking about the Senators game last week, or
they might
briefly, but they're definitely not talking about other people typically.
Right.
They're talking about ideas. Right. And so that might be a little way to find them.
And they're probably not saying the things that you're saying, which is, hey, I'm always going to have a car payment. Yeah. Like there's different things. It's almost like watching for what's not being said.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
It is. So Sean Penn, he said something interesting. There is a lot of mediocrity being celebrated and a lot of wonderful stuff being ignored and discouraged. We want to thank you for the privilege of coming alongside you, being your advocate on the journey towards generational legacy.
Moving forward with the Decker team. Moving forward together with